If you just go outside right now and pick up a stone from your driveway, you probably just see, oh, geology.
Yeah, a literal paperweight. Just something static, cold, and, entirely inanimate.
Right. But today, we are asking you to completely flip that script. We are taking a deep dive into excerpts from a text titled Crystals and the Divine Feminine, Pagan Goddess Traditions.
And this is such a fascinating text.
It really is. And our mission today isn't just to look at the pretty colors or like the abstract symbolism of these stones. We're actually cracking open the instruction manual of how pagan practitioners use stones as living, breathing spiritual batteries.
Which, and we should probably state this right out of the gate, requires a massive shift in perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Because to understand this framework, you kind of have to temporarily discard the modern scientific definition of what constitutes life. Like, in this tradition, stones are not static objects.
Right, they're not just dead rock.
Exactly. They are active, vibrating entities. They have a distinct function. The belief is that they absorb, store, and transmit energy, so they serve as a highly literal bridge to the divine feminine.
And I want to point out that this isn't some new age trend that just popped up on social media last week either.
No, not at all.
This tradition has a serious historical pedigree. I mean, we're talking about a continuous thread stretching way back to ancient Egypt. The text points out how specific crystals were utilized there to represent and channel the goddess Isis.
Yeah, and you see the exact same functional use in ancient Greece tied to Aphrodite.
Right. And in Rome, connected to Venus.
And the key thing to remember about those ancient civilizations is that they didn't view these stones as mere decorations for their temples. It wasn't just aesthetic.
Like, it wasn't just interior design.
No, they viewed the earth's minerals as the literal crystallized essence of these goddesses. So when an Egyptian priestess used a stone in a ritual for Isis, she didn't think she was just holding a symbol of the goddess.
She believed she was holding a localized fragment of the goddess's actual power.
Exactly. The stone was a direct conduit.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because calling a chunk of quartz a living being or, a fragment of a goddess is a massive conceptual leap for most of us.
It really is.
So let's try to ground this in a modern equivalent. If you're struggling to visualize how a rock can be alive and have a function, imagine these crystals as spiritual flash drives or like rechargeable batteries.
I love that. That mechanical analogy works perfectly for the functional aspect, though I'd argue we should maybe think of them as organic batteries.
Organic batteries, right.
Yeah, like an acoustic tuning fork made of earth.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Because, what does a flash drive actually do? It's just a physical shell that holds zero intrinsic data until you do something with it.
Right, you have to load it.
Exactly. You wipe it clean, you load it with highly specific information, which in this case is spiritual energy or intention, and then you plug it into a system.
Like a ritual space or an altar or even your own body.
Right, to transfer that data. It literally holds and moves power from point A to point B.
And just like a flash drive, it's not single use.
Yeah, you don't just throw it away.
No. The dynamic nature of these living tools is what allowed ancient practitioners to physically draw down blessings or create these intensely guarded sacred spaces. They were routing healing energy directly into the physical realm. So the stone is the hardware and the intention is the software.
Which sets up an immediate logistical reality. Because if these stones are specialized hardware, then different tools must be designed for completely different functions.
Right. You wouldn't use a watch battery to jumpstart a truck.
Exactly. And this framework doesn't just hand you a bag of rocks and wish you luck. It actually provides a really heavily categorized elemental taxonomy.
And what's fascinating here is how rigidly structured these correspondences are.
Yeah.
It's not random. The text categorizes stones by their elemental weight, mapping them directly to natural forces and specific goddesses.
So it's a very deliberate system.
Highly deliberate. Take quartz, for example. In this system, quartz is mapped to the element of air.
Which actually makes sense mechanically, right? Because quartz is often clear, it's light, and it acts as this sort of unobstructed conduit.
Very communicative.
Yeah. The tradition uses it for broad healing, protection, and representing the universal goddess form. It's kind of the multi-tool of the crystal world.
Definitely.
The text specifically notes it's favored for scrying, which is the divination practice of gazing into the stone to receive visual information. It transmits light and data without coloring it.
Right. Contrast that with amethyst, which is mapped to the element of water.
Okay.
And it's directly paired with the goddess Hecate. Now, water represents depth, the subconscious, and the unknown. Consequently, amethyst is utilized for intense spiritual growth and opening the third eye.
So it's much heavier.
Exactly. It's a heavy, introspective stone meant to navigate the darker, deeper waters of the psyche.
Wow. And then we swing back to solid ground with rose quartz, which is tied to the element of earth and the goddess Aphrodite.
Right, the love connection.
Yeah. And earth is about grounding, rooting, physical presence. So rose quartz isn't about like lofty psychic visions. It anchors love, compassion, and emotional healing right here in the physical body.
And finally, we have the catalyst, citrine.
Oh, citrine.
Citrine is tied to the element of fire. And fire is the element of action, transformation, rapid growth. So citrine is deployed to bring abundance and prosperity. It's directly associated with goddesses of harvest and fortune, like Demeter and Fortuna.
It's the spark that initiates a change in circumstance.
Exactly.
And the text points out that it's not just the mineral makeup either. The visual spectrum plays a huge role.
Right, color theory.
Yeah. Like blue stones inherently map to communication and clarity, acting almost like a cooling mechanism, while red stones map to passion and kinetic energy.
Yes.
But hold on, looking at this elemental taxonomy, I actually found a massive contradiction in the framework.
Oh. Where does the system break down?
Okay, so we just established that amethyst is inherently tied to the water element, the goddess Hecate, and the divine feminine, right?
Right, the framework is incredibly clear about that.
But then when you get to the specific section on divination practices, it states explicitly that amethyst is a highly powerful tool for connecting with the divine masculine.
Yes, the dual nature problem.
Yeah, like how can it be both? How do you have a stone that is the ultimate anchor for the deep feminine, but also the key to unlocking the divine masculine during, say, a tarot reading? It feels like the framework is totally contradicting itself. Is the hardware feminine or masculine?
Well, it seems like a contradiction until you remember the foundational premise here.
Right.
These are living, vibrating entities.
Right.
They aren't static lines of code.
Yeah.
Living things have range. They seek equilibrium.
So it's basically compensating for the environment it's in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While amethyst has a primary affinity, which is water and the feminine, its extremely high vibrational frequency allows it to act as a metaphysical bridge.
Oh, I see.
Because divination is an intense, chaotic process. It requires supreme balance to get clear answers. So if a practitioner is already flooded with feminine, intuitive energy during a reading, the amethyst flexes.
It reaches across the aisle.
Right. It taps into the divine masculine to stabilize the ritual. It just proves the tools are adaptable, responding dynamically to whatever the practitioner needs to achieve a harmonic balance.
That is so cool. It's like it's reading the room. It recognizes that you can't have a stable electrical current with only a negative charge. You need the positive charge to complete the circuit.
Precisely. Which actually brings up a really vital logistical problem.
Okay.
If these stones are truly alive and they constantly absorb the energies of the room to maintain balance,
Oh, they're going to get exhausted.
yes, they're going to pick up a ton of junk data.
Right, because you can't just buy an amethyst, pull it out of a cardboard shipping box that's been handled by a dozen stressed out delivery drivers, and immediately drop it into a sacred ritual for Hecate.
No, absolutely not.
It's basically covered in metaphysical static.
Which is exactly why the framework mandates a strict, non-negotiable sequence of mechanics before any actual magic happens. Cleansing, charging, and programming.
You have to format the drive.
You have to format the drive.
So step one is cleansing, which physically strips away that chaotic human data. And the primary methods the text outlines are submerging the stone in a bowl of salt water, or smudging it with the smoke of sage or specific herbs.
And there's a reason for the salt water. Think about the mechanism. It's a return to the primordial state.
Okay.
Salt acts as an energetic abrasive. It physically scrubs the accumulated vibrations off the stone, while the water acts as a grounding wire.
Washing that excess energy back to a neutral, earth-bound baseline.
Exactly. You are taking the stone back to factory settings.
But a formatted drive has no power. So step two is charging. You have to literally plug it in. The framework dictates placing the cleansed stone in direct sunlight or moonlight for several hours.
Right.
Or if you can't do that, you rest it on a slab of selenite or a large quartz cluster.
And this is where we see celestial resonance at play. Because you are exposing the stone to massive, unfiltered sources of natural radiation, the sun or the moon. The stone absorbs that environmental energy.
And what about the selenite?
Well, using selenite works because it holds a uniquely high, constant resonant frequency. Huh. When you put a depleted stone on top of it, the selenite essentially forces the exhausted stone to tune up to its level.
Oh, much like striking a tuning fork next to a silent one.
Exactly like that.
Wow. Okay, so step 3 is programming. This is where the human hardware interfaces with the earth hardware.
Yes.
You hold the fully charged neutral crystal in your hands, you visualize the exact desired outcome, and you speak your intention aloud into the stone.
And that vocalization is key. You aren't just thinking about it silently. You are deliberately altering the acoustic environment of the stone.
Because sound is vibration.
Right. By speaking your intention, you are physically vibrating the crystal, writing your specific software program into its energetic matrix. It now has a localized, targeted mission.
And once you have an entire toolkit of these programmed stone, well, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, the grids.
Yes. The framework dedicates an enormous amount of focus to creating what are called crystal grids. And when you look at the schematics for these grids, it is identical to building a spiritual electrical circuit board.
The geometry is incredibly precise.
It really is. You don't just toss your charged stones into a pretty pile on your altar. You draw a specific geometric pattern, often sacred geometry, on a cloth or a piece of wood.
Yeah.
Then you place your stones into highly specific, calculated positions on that schematic. And there is a cardinal rule here. The stones must not touch each other.
Because if they touch, they short circuit. They just dump their energy into each other and cancel out.
Exactly. It is the exact same engineering principle as laying out transistors, resistors, and capacitors on a motherboard. The physical space between the stones is what creates the active field.
That's such a great way to visualize it.
You are building a literal machine out of living rocks to route and amplify power. And finally, you activate the grid, tracing a line between the stones with a wand or your finger. You're essentially flipping the power switch to turn the machine on. You use a mantra or a prayer to activate the whole field.
And merging your motherboard analogy with our earlier tuning fork concept explains the why of this beautifully. The architecture of that grid dictates the flow of the energy.
Okay.
By keeping them apart at mathematically precise distances, their individual energetic fields overlap. They create a localized harmony, a unified, amplified frequency field that basically sits over the room.
Wow.
It's a highly sophisticated technology of space and intention, designed to pull the divine feminine out of the abstract ether and anchor it heavily into a physical room.
So the grid is humming, the tools are clean, they're charged, they're programmed, and actively routing power. What is the ultimate output of all this? What actually happens to the human being standing in the middle of this energetic architecture?
Well, the framework categorizes the tangible output into 3 distinct applications.
Okay.
The first, and definitely the most prominent, is healing. Within this tradition, the vibrating fields of these stones are used to directly balance the practitioner's chakras, their energy centers, and reinforce their aura.
Right. And for an audience familiar with these concepts, we know the aura acts as the body's energetic immune system, essentially.
Yeah.
The framework specifically states that by locking a crystal grid into your environment, you are hardening your auric boundaries. It acts as a localized shield against psychic intrusions, negative environmental static, and even just everyday stress. It improves sleep. It literally repels chaotic data.
It does. And the second application is divination, which is entirely about data retrieval. We mentioned quartz for scrying earlier, but it's also about using amethyst alongside tarot or pendulum work.
So they act as signal boosters.
Exactly. They clear the static out of the practitioner's mind so they can download clearer insights from the divine feminine.
And the third output is the crafting of sacred objects. Because practitioners don't just leave the stones on the altar, right?
No, they take them into the world.
Yeah, they bind them into wands, staffs, talismans, and daily amulets. They take a piece of that grid, that localized goddess energy, and literally wear it on their body as they walk out into the mundane world.
It creates a mobile sacred space. Just a pocket-sized sanctuary.
So what does this all mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered ancient Egyptian rites, elemental taxonomies, energetic motherboards. But why does understanding the mechanics of this pagan goddess tradition matter to you, the listener, especially if you have no intention of ever building a crystal grid in your living room?
Right. Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, strip away the metaphysics for a moment and look at the sheer psychological architecture of this practice. Look at what it actually demands of a human being.
It demands quite a bit.
It does. It demands that you stop. It requires you to physically clean your environment. It asks you to sit in silence, focus your scattered mind, visualize a better reality, and speak your deepest vulnerabilities and goals out loud.
It is the ultimate form of forced mindfulness.
Exactly. We live in an era of unprecedented chaotic data. So regardless of your spiritual beliefs regarding living stones or goddesses, the mechanics of this tradition represent an absolute masterclass in intention setting.
That's so true.
Creating a grid, or even just washing a stone, forces you to carve out an uncompromised, distraction-free sanctuary.
You are externalizing your internal state. Like when you want to be more compassionate, you don't just think about it fleetingly while you're checking your email. You take a piece of rose quartz, you wash it, you charge it, you tell it your goal,
Yes.
and then you put it right on your desk. Every single time your eyes hit that physical, heavy object, it triggers a psychological anchor. It reminds you of the promise you made to yourself. The magic is in the friction it creates against your daily routine.
The mechanics of the ritual build a physical scaffold for psychological clarity. It takes the abstract concept of healing or abundance and gives it a literal weight that you can hold in the palm of your hand.
Which really brings our deep dive full circle today. I mean, we started in the ancient temples of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, examining how these cultures didn't just worship Isis and Aphrodite, but utilized the earth's minerals as the literal localized flesh of those goddesses.
Right. And we explored the massive paradigm shift required to view stones not as dead geology, but as organic batteries, living entities capable of absorbing, storing, and transmitting complex data.
We broke down the elemental taxonomy, exploring the why behind the system, like why the airy clarity of quartz is used for scrying, why the watery depth of amethyst bridges the masculine and feminine, and why the fiery catalyst of citrine sparks abundance.
And we walked through the rigorous hygiene of the practice, the saltwater resets, the celestial charging under the sun and moon, and the acoustic programming of intention.
We looked at the sacred geometry of crystal grids, where overlapping fields of resonance create a physical sanctuary.
And ultimately, we grounded it all in the psychology of the practitioner, seeing how these living stones force a level of mindfulness, boundary setting, and intention that is just desperately needed in our chaotic modern world.
It is a profoundly rich tradition that demands you reevaluate your relationship with the physical objects in your life.
It really is. And examining that relationship well, this raises an important question.
Let's hear it.
The entire foundation of this framework relies on the premise that stones are living entities that constantly and indiscriminately absorb the energetic data of their environment.
Right. They soak up whatever room they are sitting in.
Exactly. So think about your own environment right now. What kind of energy are the everyday stones, the diamond rings, the quartz watches, the decorative rocks sitting in your house absorbing at this exact moment?
Wow. If my watch or the pendant around my neck is a constantly recording spiritual flash drive, what exact data is it downloading while I'm stressing out in traffic or doom scrolling the news or having a tense argument in my kitchen?
It's a lot to think about.
That is a brilliantly heavy thought to leave on.
It certainly makes you want to go find some salt water and format your own hard drives, doesn't it?
I am absolutely looking at the rocks on my bookshelf differently right now. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it provided you with a totally new lens through which to view the ground beneath your feet. Until next time, keep questioning the world around you.